Welcome to the Cuick 10 podcast, brought to you by Cuick Trac, focusing on all things FedCon and cyber defense from different perspectives and different personalities, all in 10-ish minutes. Here's your host, Derek White.
Welcome back to another episode of the Cuick 10 podcast. I am your host, Derek White, with Beryllium and Cuick Trac. With me today, I have a special guest for the second time in a row. We have somebody from our team, and his name is George Perezdiaz, Cuick Trac's Director of Advisory Services. George, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing good. I love that every time you have someone here, it's a special guest.
Well, when you come back, it's going to be super special guests. That's the best part. Yeah. I don't want to sell anybody short. Say, we have a decent guest today. His name is George Perezdiaz.
Yeah, we have an okay guy today.
We have an okay guest today, yeah. Just wait until the person that comes on and I say, we've got this guy. Yeah. Well, happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you. Here we are in this will be the last episode of season 1 of the Cuick 10 podcast. So we will not have any more episodes until after the first of the year. So we figured we'd have a special guest on for the special time of year. I'm wearing my my Merry Christmas, you filthy animal. If you're not wearing a Home Alone Christmas sweater, or even trying, is my opinion there. But we're going to spend a few minutes today talking about some end of year things, some CMMC related meat and potatoes, if you will, to go along with the food and Christmas theme here. But before we get into that, as always, if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast platform, or you just stumbled upon us somehow, or someone said, hey, you should listen to this because this might be relevant to you, make sure you subscribe where you can. Watch on YouTube, subscribe there. They usually have a little ding bell thing that you can click on to let you know that every time I'm talking to somebody in this, you get alerted that say, hey, maybe this is important to you. But also we've got previous podcasts are all on YouTube. They're on the podcast platforms. They're also found on our website, cuicktrac.com, spelled CUICKTRAC.com. And you can see up at the top, there is a spot for all of our past podcasts. If you're new to us, if you're back, welcome back. Thank you again. George, here we are. December 16th is here. The CMMC date, for those that aren't familiar, that is the essentially go live date of the CMMC program. The final rule was passed. There's still some things that we anticipate to be delivered here pretty soon, but we are here. We're going to talk about what's next. We're going to get into some other kind of very, very important things to just make sure you're on top of before you head into your holiday coma. And I just don't want to try very hard for the rest of the year, which is a tough year to do that because there's a lot to be paying attention to. So let's start with the.
You said that out loud.
Yeah, right. Well, let's start with the here now. December 16th here. So, George, what's that mean, and what should people be paying attention to if maybe this hasn't been on their radar as much the last couple months?
Yeah. Thank you for having me. And here's watch out, a bad joke coming in. Has anybody been stopped you at the supermarket and say, hey, where's the ugly sweater party? Because you're wearing a sweater that you didn't know it was an ugly sweater. But I'm not implying that yours is an ugly sweater. It's a beautiful, lovely sweater.
First ever sounder on the Cuick 10 podcast. Thank you, George, for that opportunity. No, I know that's why we just call them Christmas sweaters.
Christmas sweater. So, or holiday sweaters for some folks. But
yes.
So December 16th is here. Usually, and it's always good to bring it as a quick reminder that DFAR 7012 has been here since 2017. And one thing that comes with that reminder is that we're supposed to ensure that we're protecting the confidentiality of CUI, that we have implemented our NIST 171 requirements, documented those requirements and how we're meeting them in a system security plan, that we have the ability to report it to the DoD with a medium assurance certificate within 72 hours, and that if we're using a cloud services provider for processing, storing, and transmitting CUI, that provider is FedRAMP moderate or equivalent. Wink, wink. So that's one thing that is always good to mention. Also good to mention that the 47012, it's now 4 years, I'm sorry, 7020 is now 4 years older. And that is a quick reminder to know that the DoD always has the right to come and assess your environment with or without CMMC being effective, which, oh, by the way, as of December 16th, CMMC is now a program enforceable. You can go get an assessment. You are expected to have a affirming official defined and identified within your organization. And that person is supposed to attest to your D4 7012 and 7020 existing strategy that you have performed the um, self-assessment, and that the score in that self-assessment is as accurate as it can be. And there also the affirming official is validating that the score is accurate and that it will continue to be maintained and managed in a way that is acceptable to the standards and the requirement per DFAR 7012 and CMMC. So that's essentially the things that are new for you today. Is we're gone from self-assessments to part of the phased approach, which starts 16 is the self-certification. Please do not forget that CMMC brings CMMC level 1, meaning your programs that are processing federal contract information, all those systems and all your users that are interacting with that data and or part of your network that has that federal contract information has to be accounted for, and that you also have to report compliance to CMMC level 1, which does not allow plan of actions and milestones. POEMs are not allowed in CMMC level 1. Level 1 doesn't have a scoring criteria. It is a binary. You either have implemented the 15/17 security requirements successfully, or you're not meeting the intent of CMMC level 1. So anything else there, Derek?
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think we say it all the time. I'm sure if you've listened to these podcasts, it's come up. We've had some guests talk about things like SPRS and what the interim rule meant to the industry, and there's some big accountability shifting, not just the certification, which is a prove it to us that you're doing it approach as the DoD states, but signing those documents and saying that we are doing it should be a proudful moment. That's what we work with our clients to do, and that's what the people that have been on the podcast so far this year, that's why we have them on, is that's the goal. There's nothing wrong with self-attesting, self-assertion, whatever you want to call it, that's now required. Is you can also have a third party come in, certified C3PAO, come in and do it too. So then when it comes down to taking all of this and making it more digestible, easier to protect, easier to manage, scope, right? Big topic, always big topic. Run through a couple strategic scoping reduction practices, best practices for CUI programs so that people can take away today things they can go do right now.
Yeah. Generally, thank you for that, Derek. Generally, this is good for larger organizations that have either a global presence or an extremely large business development team, sales team. If you have a team of 30 sales business development folks that are winning and going for those opportunities to potentially have federal contract information or control and classified information, reduce the scope. Design yourself a 5-person team, perhaps, that are specific and reserved for federal contracts. That way, instead of having 30 personnel accessing your CUI network and having to deploy the 110 controls that apply to their endpoint and or the systems that I interact with, now you're reducing it to just potentially 5 or less. That's one of those things that is a quick win. The same is true for the project teams that are going to be developing the products and programs for the DoD specifically. Does it have to be everyone in your science and research and development and or engineering team? Probably not. With the engineering team becomes a little bit more complex because, as most of you know, engineers, they love to collaborate, and that's how they get creative and come up with some IP. But strategically speaking, you can more often than not reduce the scope of CUI by identifying the project, the teams, and the specific systems that can and should be processed and stored and transmitted in CUI.
Yeah, and then we don't want to lose that, right? Innovation and the the brain power and everything across the dib is what we need, and I think that becomes more and more relevant every single day.
Oh my
Which
goodness, yes. One of the things that we learned real quickly, Derek, from COVID-19 and working from home was that innovation actually took a hit in America because again, those scientists were actually working from home instead of being in the same room, collaborating, being creative, and actually that was something that was documented as a little bit of a blip in our strength.
Yeah, 100%. Not to mention we don't have to go down that rabbit hole of what that did to security and teleworking and how
What
valuable
we
some people became or how scared some people came when it came to their job requirements. But that does bring me to kind of the last thing I'd like to hit on before we move on to the next episode and the next year of the Quick 10 podcast. But George, the third party risk side of things. That's a huge deal when it comes to a CMMC compliance program. It's no secret that isn't something that probably took center stage and forefront focus when pre-COVID and then after COVID, CMMC is announced. We got these changes. Is it going to happen? All that kind of stuff. It just seems that there's still this huge gap in what does it mean when I use third parties? And most of our clients, for example, right, small, medium size, and some bigger companies, it doesn't matter your size. Third-party risk is everywhere. Talk a little bit about that. What are your same thing, best practices, things that we're always talking to people about, and your history and your experience in the space speaks volumes. So walk through that just a smidge if you can.
Yeah, so really quickly, because this is Quick 10, to learn from what the prime contractors have been doing since 2017, 2018, which is try to replicate those questionnaires that they send out. Are you ready to accept CUI on my behalf? Do you understand the risk associated with accepting CUI on my behalf and your responsibility to continue to protect CUI in the same way that I do as an authorized holder? So make sure that part of your strategy moving forward 2015 is to create yourself a questionnaire, send it to your suppliers. Anybody that is helping you acquire and execute on DoD contracts, make sure that they understand that you still need them and that they still accept that responsibility. Remember, they are continuing to be an extension of your compliance program. The one thing that I forgot to mention before was also the life cycle of the plans of actions and milestones. That's a huge one. 2016, December 16, 2024. Now we have a life cycle for plans of actions and milestones in this new CMMC program environment that have to be 180 days, a life cycle closure. So when you upload your SPRS score tomorrow, 16 or 17 of December, make sure that you commit to closing those plans of actions and milestones in 180 days. And then and only then you can say that you're meeting the intent of the new 32 CFR and the final effective rule.
Yeah, well said. Yes, and that's where, if you're listening to this and what George is talking about makes you concerned or makes you excited, doesn't matter. If you want to talk to George and our team, the team that he leads here at Cuick Trac and Beryllium, reach out, go to the website. We're not touting ourselves a ton on this podcast, but these are serious times, serious topics that we want to address. And just to be fun and touch the soundboard that we've never used before, we want to hear people passing their assessments and hearing not a didn't make it, right? Me and a soundboard are a bad combination. So
It's bad. It's been really bad.
This is going to be 2025 season 2 Quick 10 podcast. It's going to be fun. It's going to be awesome. George, thanks again. Really do love having you on the team. I actually think when we first talked about having you as a guest, you weren't on the team yet. That was a while back, but thanks for joining, and looking forward to some great things in 2025. And any parting words before we end the holiday season episode here?
Yeah, nothing else but to continue to take care of each other, keep each other accountable. When you receive CUI from a client, supplier, and/or prime contractor, remind them that that system is or isn't authorized to receive CUI. Take care of each other out there and be nice.
Yeah, and if Santa comes down the chimney and leaves you a purple little present that says CUI on it, make sure you're in a controlled environment and you handle that with care. Just kidding. Anyway, yes, thank you, George. Thank you again to everybody who's listened so far this year. It's been a great 7 months, I think it's been, which is insane to me. And we'll get through this all together. The CMMC thing is real and everything we can do to help. So thanks again, everybody. Have a great holiday season. And we'll call that a wrap. Make sure you go to the website, check out past podcasts so you can check on the future ones. Hit them up on your favorite podcast platform, as well as on YouTube, where these will all live. And we will catch everybody on the flip side.